I married my high school sweetheart. We were young, inexperienced, and optimistic about a future together. At first, everything seemed perfect. We were learning how to be adults while holding on to the naive belief that love alone was enough to keep us strong. But life has a way of testing things you think are unbreakable. One afternoon, I came home early and found my wife with another man. The shock and betrayal hit like a truck. She begged for forgiveness, and we went to counseling. For months, we worked on rebuilding our marriage. She seemed like a new person, devoted and eager to make things right. I thought we had a chance, but deep down, I couldn't shake the doubt. Then one day, I saw her Facebook messages open on our computer. I didn't mean to snoop, but the truth stared me in the face. She was still unfaithful. My heart shattered again, but this time, I didn't react. I acted as though nothing happened while planning my escape. One Sunday evening, I packed a few essentials, told her I was taking the dogs to the park, and drove away for good. That drive felt like freedom and devastation rolled into one. With my savings in the bank and nothing holding me back, I decided to start fresh somewhere new. I drove aimlessly at first, unsure where I was going but certain I couldn't stay. By the time the sun rose, I had resolved to rebuild my life in a small town far from everything I'd known. Luck was on my side when I found a job in my trade. The routine helped me steady myself, though the emotional wounds still lingered. My ex-wife reached out the day after I left, but I ignored her calls. When I didn't respond, she bombarded me with hateful messages, blaming me for everything and even sending pictures of herself with other men to provoke me. It hurt, but I refused to engage. In time, I met someone who restored my faith in love. She was kind, genuine, and nothing like my ex. Slowly, I learned to trust again. We got married, and my life became a version of happiness I hadn't thought possible. Years later, I returned to my hometown for a family gathering. My mom posted a picture of me and my new wife online, and, to my surprise, my ex reached out. She wanted to meet for coffee, saying she needed closure. Reluctantly, I agreed. The meeting turned out to be more healing than I expected. She apologized for everything, taking full responsibility for the pain she caused. For the first time, I saw her as human, flawed, but genuinely remorseful. We talked for over an hour, shedding a few awkward tears in public. Before parting, she asked if she could give me a hug. I hesitated but agreed, and we said our final goodbyes. When I returned home and told my wife about the meeting, she became distant. I thought I'd be sleeping on the couch that night. Instead, she came back to the room a few minutes later in tears. She hugged me tightly and told me how grateful she was for the life we had built together. Looking back, the decision to leave that day wasn't just about ending a marriage, it was about choosing myself for the first time. For years, I had settled into a pattern of compromise and self-denial, believing it was what love demanded. But leaving forced me to confront my worth and redefine my life on my own terms. The turning point came in the years after I started over. Building a new life was far from easy. The loneliness was crushing at times, and the weight of the past clung to me like a shadow. But piece by piece, I put myself back together. My new job gave me stability, and gradually, I began to meet people who reminded me that kindness and loyalty still existed in the world. When I met my second wife, it felt different from the start. There was no rush, no need to prove anything. She didn't just love me, she respected me. She saw the scars I carried and never asked me to pretend they weren't there. It was a slow and steady partnership, one built on trust and shared effort. Together, we created a life that felt like home, a concept I hadn't truly understood before. But healing is rarely a straight path. Meeting my ex-wife for coffee stirred emotions I thought I had buried. Her apology, while genuine, brought back memories I hadn't revisited in years. The betrayal, the heartbreak, and the chaos of those days all resurfaced. Yet, as we talked, I realized something important. I wasn't the same person anymore. Saying goodbye to her, this time on my terms, felt like closing a chapter one didn't know I was still carrying. It didn't erase the pain, but it helped me make peace with it. For the first time, I could look back without bitterness. When I told my wife about the meeting, I worried it would create distance between us. Instead, it deepened our bond. Her tears that night weren't just about my past, they were a reminder of how far we'd come together. She hugged me like she never wanted to let go, and in that moment, I knew I had made the right choices, not just in leaving the past behind, but in choosing her as my future. Leaving was the hardest decision I ever made, but it was also the most important. That choice set off a chain of events that led me to a better life, a stronger sense of self, and the kind of love I didn't think I deserved. My past taught me that sometimes you have to walk away, not because you're weak, but because staying would destroy you. Now, my life is filled with gratitude. I wake up each day beside someone who makes me feel whole. The pain I endured isn't gone, but it doesn't define me anymore. Instead, it reminds me of what I've overcome and the strength I've found. I'm not angry at my ex-wife. In some ways, I even thank her. Without that heartbreak, I wouldn't have become the person I am today. But most importantly, I'm thankful for the woman who stood by me, believed in me, and helped me build a life I never thought possible. If you're struggling in a situation that feels unbearable, know that you have the power to change it. You can start over. It's not easy, but the life waiting for you on the other side is worth it. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel for more personal stories and advice. Your support means the world. For so long, I had defined her as the source of my pain, but in that cafe, I saw her as just another flawed person trying to move on from her mistakes. When I got home, my wife's reaction added another layer to my reflection. Her initial discomfort caught me off guard, but the moment she hugged me, I knew she understood. She had always been my rock, but this time, it felt different. Her tears weren't about jealousy or insecurity, they were about gratitude and empathy. She was grateful for the life we had built and empathetic to the struggles I had faced to get here. That night, I lay awake, replaying the events of the day in my mind. I thought about how every painful moment, every choice I had made to leave behind the life I once knew, had led me to this point. My past wasn't perfect, but it had shaped me into the person I was. I had learned to set boundaries, demand respect, and prioritize my own happiness. It wasn't just my ex-wife I had let go of, it was the weight of everything that came with her. The betrayal, the guilt, the bitterness, all of it had been eating away at me for years. By facing her and confronting those emotions, I had finally freed myself from them. Looking over at my wife sleeping peacefully beside me, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had no idea how much her love had healed me. And though I didn't say it often enough, I knew I owed my happiness to the life we had built together. Leaving my old life was the hardest decision I ever made, but it was also the most important. It forced me to face the pain, let go of the past, and rebuild myself from the ground up. That meeting with my ex-wife, while unexpected, gave me something I hadn't realized I needed: closure. For years, I carried resentment toward her. But in that cafe, as she apologized and took responsibility, I saw the situation for what it was, a chapter of my life that had taught me lessons I needed to learn. It wasn't about forgetting or even fully forgiving, it was about releasing the anger and making peace with what happened. Now, I have a life that feels genuine. My wife, who is my biggest source of strength, reminds me every day of the kind of love I deserve. I've built a foundation rooted in trust, respect, and kindness. It's not perfect, nothing ever is, but it's real, and that's more than I ever could have hoped for back then. Looking back, I realized that leaving wasn't running away, it was taking the first step towards something better. I don't regret the pain because it led me to where I am today. If you've ever been in a situation where leaving feels impossible, remember this: you deserve a life that brings you joy, not one that keeps you trapped in pain. Change is terrifying, but staying in a place that breaks you is far worse. Take the leap. It's worth it. Thank you for reading. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Your support helps bring these stories to life.